Hey everyone, this is a real account and story from the 3rd SS Totenkopf, a story of sheer grit and determination. Hope you enjoy it. On February 20th, 1943, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3, along with the 4th Heavy Panzer Company, departed from Poltava and headed toward Karlovka. The journey took place under extreme winter conditions, with roads covered in ice. Due to the treacherous terrain, 6 tanks slid off the road, including the command tank of SS Hauptsturmführer Mius, which crashed into a roadside ditch. Additionally, a truck from the 4th Heavy Panzer Company overturned but was successfully recovered and towed back to Poltava for repairs. By the end of the night, 13 tanks had sustained damage. The battalion arrived in Karlovka early in the morning on February 22nd. The next objective was to regroup north of Pereshchepino. As the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 approached the village, Soviet forces attempted to seize control of the road from the right flank. In response, the tanks spread out across the open terrain, with the 1st Company leading the formation as they approached the first houses. The Soviet assault was repelled by tank fire, resulting in the destruction of several Soviet anti-tank guns. By the evening, Pereshchepino was secured. However, the 4th Heavy Panzer Company suffered its first casualty when the driver of SS Obersturmbannführer Rinner's Tiger tank drowned. Additionally, a second Tiger tank broke through the ice, though it was later recovered in mid-April 1943 with assistance from a section of the Panzer Pioneer Company attached to SS Panzer Regiment 3. The 4th Heavy Panzer Company later reported on an incident involving SS Untersturmführer Rinner's Tiger tank. While exiting Pereshchepino, the tank was required to cross a frozen river. Unfortunately, the bridge was neither wide enough nor strong enough to support the Tiger's weight. The ice suddenly gave way, causing the tank to sink up to its turret. A workshop platoon was dispatched to the village and set up operations near a windmill. Shortly after, the recovery team arrived. On February 27, SS Untersturmführer Greisinger gave the order to begin the tank's recovery, determining that the area was secure enough to proceed. He had inspected the site a day earlier, on February 26th, which was the same day that SS Obergruppenführer Theodor Eicke, the division commander, was killed. SS Brigade Führer Max Simon subsequently took over command of the division. The recovery process required 5 18-ton recovery half-tracks, 4 positioned at the front and 1 at the rear. Once the Tiger was successfully extracted from the river, an inspection revealed that it was not a complete loss. This was a relief for the crew, as the tank only required extensive repairs. It was later transported to Dnipropetrovsk for full-scale restoration. The workshop platoon viewed this as a significant achievement, marking their first large-scale recovery operation. During the night of February 22nd to 23rd, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 regrouped south of Pereshchepino and continued its advance in a southern direction toward Verbiki. On February 23rd, the battalion halted briefly to receive a new allocation of fuel and ammunition before proceeding with 3rd Company leading the formation. On February 24th, the village of Vyazovok was attacked and secured by 0930 hours. During the battle, 2 Soviet anti-tank guns were destroyed. Though the battalion lost 1 Panzer III, the unit then regrouped north of the road leading from Popasna to Pavlograd. On the night of February 24th to 25th, the battalion's light supply column reported combat activity near the village of Nagashtovka, where the unit had set up camp near Kochereshki. Between February 25th and 26th, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 engaged in heavy combat in the Zaradorovka and Strasnoye areas. The battle on February 26th was particularly intense due to severe weather conditions. By February 27th, the battalion successfully captured Zaradorovka and regrouped along the railway line near Sakharivka. During the advance, a Panzer III from 2nd Company was rendered inoperative due to a damaged fuel pump. SS Obersturmbannführer Rinner was reassigned to the staff company of SS Panzer Regiment 3 as the new regimental adjutant. However, he was later killed on March 21st, 1943. Following his reassignment, SS Obersturmbannführer Schroeder from the staff company of 2nd Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, assumed command of Rinner's platoon, while SS Untersturmführer Kohler remained in charge of the half platoon. On February 28th, SS Panzer Regiment 3 regrouped along the main road leading from Panyutain. By the last day of February 1943, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 had 13 panzer tanks undergoing repairs. On the final day of February 1943, the workshop platoon from the 4th Heavy Panzer Company was stationed in Orelka. The unit's vehicles could only operate during the morning hours since the afternoons were dedicated to recovering bogged-down vehicles stuck in the thick mud. Along the main road, stranded trucks awaited recovery approximately every 100 meters. Some of these vehicles had already been destroyed. The company column extended over a kilometer, struggling to maintain unit cohesion throughout the march. In Orelka, a 7-man work detail was assigned to recover a Mercedes truck that had become trapped in the mud while carrying a Tiger tank engine. Fortunately, a nearby truck equipped with a mounted crane facilitated the recovery effort. Most of the workshop platoon remained stationed in Orelka, supporting vehicle maintenance and recovery operations. At the end of February 1943, Gunther Trauper, a member of the 6th Company of the 2nd Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, recalled an incident. The regimental adjutant, SS Obersturmbannführer Rinner, approached us and said he would send a Tiger tank to tow our disabled Panzer III. However, we had to wait because nearby engineers had considered blowing up our tank. We waited for some time, but no Tiger tank arrived. Meanwhile, our radio operator reported the sound of an approaching engine. Instead of a Tiger, a Panzer IV arrived and successfully towed us away. Between March 1st and 2nd, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 engaged in combat in Ulyanovka and the Yefremovka region. On March 2nd, a fresh allocation of Tiger tank engines arrived for the SS Panzer Corps, ensuring that the heavy tanks could continue operations. By March 3rd, 1943, the workshop platoon had spent 4 days in Nizhny Orel, performing engine inspections on both Tiger tanks and Panzer III tanks. Many of the vehicles were showing signs of wear, particularly in their running gear. On the same day, the Tiger Company saw its first combat action in Russia, participating in the destruction of a Soviet regimental-sized column that was moving west from Dimitrovka to Grushino. Fritz Hitz, a soldier involved in the battle, described his experience. "We always lead with a Tiger tank at the front, supported by 2 Panzer III tanks as escorts. I was in the crew of Bieber. Our gunner was Hempfinger, the loader was Hitz, the driver was Walter Gansera, and the radio operator was Theo Engels. For a while, we drove opposite the front line. Hempfinger and I smoked cigarettes, not out of fear, but with a certain nervous tension. We watched the artillery fire in the distance as if it were a fireworks display. Then the order came. Prepare for combat, hatches closed. I loaded an armor-piercing round into the gun's breech, as the second command echoed through the radio. T-34 tanks approaching from the front. Advance. The Tiger tank moved forward alongside us. The Soviet forces counterattacked with everything they had. Looking at our 50mm main gun, we wondered whether it would be effective against the T-34s. Suddenly, our gunner reported that he could not rotate the turret. He attempted again. Still nothing. Upon inspection, we discovered that a machine gun belt had become lodged in the turret ring. As we pushed forward, maneuvering to avoid anti-tank fire, a Tiger tank commanded by Konrad Berger destroyed a Soviet anti-tank gun. I believe he also knocked out 2 T-34 tanks, but I cannot say for certain. As I directed my commander to turn right, the situation quickly deteriorated. A Soviet soldier carrying an explosive pack charged toward our tank. Before we could react, he detonated the pack against our tracks, crippling our movement. The commander immediately reported the damage to Company Commander Muslechner, who then ordered the loader to dismount and assess the situation. I stepped out to inspect the track while enemy fire continued. With only a hammer and my sidearm, I worked on repairing the damage. Luckily for us, Konrad Berger and his Tiger tank provided covering fire, keeping Soviet troops at bay. It felt as if the entire company was waiting on me to finish the repairs. Against the odds, I managed to restore the track, and we got moving again. Shortly after, Muslechner announced over the radio, "Well done, Panzer 424. Later, a Hauptscharführer from the 4th Heavy Panzer Company shared a conversation he had with their company commander regarding the Tigers' battlefield performance. The commander described the Tigers' first battle as a wolf unleashed among a herd of sheep. He said, "The Tiger tank simply annihilated everything it fired upon. It felt unstoppable." Between March 4th and 5th, 1943, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3, along with other elements of the Totenkopf Division, supported the Das Reich Division in encircling a Soviet tank brigade and capturing the village of Okhotchai. On March 6th, the Totenkopf Division was designated as the Corps Reserve for the SS Panzer Corps. The following day, the 4th Heavy Panzer Company took the opportunity to perform much-needed maintenance on their vehicles. On March 8th, the Totenkopf division was removed from the reserve and ordered south of Walki, advancing towards Stary Merchik. That same day, near Griekovo, an incident occurred involving Tiger tanks attempting to cross a frozen river. On the morning of March 8th, the 4th Heavy Panzer Company moved forward, covering a distance of 10 kilometers before encountering an obstacle, a frozen river blocking their advance. With no available bridging equipment, SS Untersturmführer Kohler decided to attempt a direct crossing in his Tiger tank. At first he managed to make progress, but suddenly the ice gave way. The Tiger plunged into the freezing water, fully submerging the fighting compartment. The crew barely escaped as icy water filled the tank. SS Untersturmführer Kohler, completely drenched, appeared devastated. Moments later, SS Untersturmführer Rathsack attempted to cross the same river in his Tiger tank, but his vehicle became bogged down, with the rear hull sinking into the embankment. Water and sludge flooded the engine compartment, rendering the tank immobile. The workshop platoon immediately began recovery efforts, draining Rathsack's tank before pulling it out. However, Kohler's Tiger was a much greater challenge. A large group of Soviet civilians was assembled and ordered to construct a mound leading to the sunken tank, a process that took several days. Once the mound was completed, the workshop platoon used pumps and hoses to drain the tank before recovering it. One of Kohler's crew members later recalled the incident, referring to it as the Bath of Griekovo. I no longer remember the exact location or the name of the river, but it was March 8, 1943. That day, we lost 2 Tiger tanks trying to cross a frozen river. Only a few days earlier, another Tiger tank had sunk through the ice, drowning its driver. The bridge ahead of us was rated for only 6 tons and looked unstable, yet our Tiger tanks were urgently needed in the Walki-Kharkov sector. With no alternative, we had to attempt the crossing. Before setting off, I took a moment to eat some rations, butter, liverwurst and bread. I also moved my pistol to my right side, fearing I might become trapped and drown. As we started moving, my commander spoke softly. We heard the ice cracking beneath us, and we could already see the far side of the river. If we made it across, we planned to celebrate with schnapps. Suddenly, without warning, the tank lurched violently upward like an elevator. Ice shattered beneath us, and freezing water rushed in. The weight of the water on my hatch trapped me inside. I struggled to move but was blocked by a 5-day ration box. My thick winter clothing made movement even harder. I fought my way toward the turret space, but I got stuck again. Water was rising fast. I saw an open turret hatch, clenched my fists, and pushed with all my strength. My life flashed before me. My mother, my sister, my father. I kept pushing until, finally, I squeezed through and got my head above water. A comrade tried to help, but the freezing water made it impossible. He ran off and returned with a ladder, stretching it out to me. I grabbed hold and was pulled onto the embankment, where I collapsed. When I regained consciousness, I was inside a Russian house, wrapped in fur for warmth. We recovered the tank in mid-April and towed it to Dnipropetrovsk for repairs. By then, SS Untersturmführer Kohler had already returned to the company. Our radio operator, however, had to spend time in the hospital before rejoining us. On March 10th, Fritz Hitz documented an unexpected skirmish while the company was conducting technical maintenance. We had full ammunition loads and fuel tanks ready. Some comrades, including SS Unterscharführer Hackel, Gunner Hempfinger and I, were busy working on the tanks. Suddenly, gunfire rang out. We saw muzzle flashes from a house and immediately assumed a Soviet raid. We returned fire and waited. More shots followed, and then I saw Hackel stumble. I ran to him, catching him under his arms as he fell. He had been shot in the chest. One of our men climbed into a panzer turret, returning fire with the machine gun. Later, Hempfinger and Theo Engels arrived with a captured partisan. A bullet had passed through Hempfinger's trousers and lodged in his cigarette case, saving his life. A few days later, we mourned another comrade, a Unterscharführer who was crushed when a Tiger tank accidentally reversed into a house where he had been sitting. On March 10th, the 2nd Company of the 1st Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, was attached to the Panzer Grenadier Division Das Reich. The following day, the Leibstandarte SS Division launched a surprise assault on Kharkov, while elements of Totenkopf Division moved toward Chuguyev and Rogin, cutting Soviet supply routes. By March 12th, the 1st Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, was assigned to Kampfgruppe Baum, commanded by SS Obersturmbannführer Baum of SS Panzergrenadier Regiment 1 Totenkopf. That afternoon, the Kampfgruppe engaged in combat for Bolshaya Danilovka. Later, Baum attempted a night assault on Chuguyev, but intelligence reports of Soviet tanks in the rear forced a halt. Instead, the night of March 12th to 13th was spent securing supply lines and communications. On March 13th, Kampfgruppe Baum advanced toward Rogen, but progress was slow due to harsh weather and Soviet resistance. Tank duels ensued between SS Panzer Regiment 3 and Soviet forces. On March 14th, the Kampfgruppe faced further delays, this time waiting for fuel supplies. Operations remained largely inactive for most of the day. By March 15th to 16th, SS Obersturmbannführer Riefkogel led 2 successful counterattacks against Soviet tank and infantry forces near Kharkov and Chuguyev. The Soviets lost 9 tanks, while the 1st Battalion SS Panzer Regiment 3 reported the loss of 1 Panzer III. On March 18, 1943, responsibility for securing the Chuguyev sector was handed over to the 6th Panzer Division of the German Army. The 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 was reassigned to the 2nd Battalion of SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment 2 Eike, under the command of SS Sturmbannführer Launer. The advance toward Belgorod was slowed once again due to severe weather, forcing SS Sturmbannführer Launer to call a halt to further movement for the night. The next day, March 19th, both the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 and the 4th Heavy Panzer Company engaged in combat near Siberovka, then advanced to the heights near Ivanovka, where SS Hauptsturmführer Mooslechner, the company commander, was killed when a faulty fuse detonated a shell inside his Tiger tank. Following his death, SS Hauptsturmführer Biermeier, the former commander of the 6th Company, was appointed as the new Tiger Company commander. On March 21st, SS Obersturmbannführer Rinner was seriously wounded near Staritsa during a Soviet artillery barrage. On March 22nd, the Tiger tanks remained stationed in Ternavaya, and the following day, maintenance operations were conducted. That same day, Adolf Hitler ordered that all heavy panzer companies in the 3 Waffen-SS tank regiments be reorganized to include 14 Tiger tanks instead of the previous 9. On March 24th, 20 Tiger tank crews were selected for transport to Germany to receive 15 newly manufactured Tiger tanks. 2 days later, 6 crews departed for Paderborn, awaiting their allocation of new tanks. On March 27th, SS Sturman Fritz Hitz was awarded the Iron Cross Second Class for his actions during the March 3rd battle. With the capture of Kharkov and Belgorod, the Totenkopf division was gradually relieved by the 320th Infantry Division, allowing Totenkopf to relocate south of Belgorod for rest and rehabilitation. The battles for Kharkov and Belgorod marked the last major German victory on the Eastern Front. On April 2nd, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 was sent to Nikolskoye for reorganization. The next day, SS Sturmbannführer Leiner, the commander of SS Panzer Regiment 3, was relieved of command due to his performance in the Kharkov battles. SS Sturmbannführer Kunzmann took over as regimental commander, while SS Sturmbannführer Bochmann was appointed as the new commander of the 2nd Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3. On April 22nd, the 4th Heavy Panzer Company was ordered to reorganize according to Kestien 1176E, March 5, 1943. The company was restructured into 3 platoons, each with 4 Tiger tanks, along with a company headquarters of 2 Tiger tanks. The 4th platoon was disbanded, and SS Oberscharführer Berger became the new company sergeant after Spiessbauer was granted home leave on May 1st. On May 1st, several new personnel joined the 4th Heavy Panzer Company, including Krawatzki, Brieger, Glöckel, Leutz, and Wagner. By June 1st, the 4th Company received a new issue of 14 Panzer IV tanks, originally allocated for the 2nd Company. On May 10th, 3 Tiger tanks repaired in Dnipropetrovsk were returned to service. The Tiger Company relocated to a new assembly area in Yushi, a journey that took 2 days. On May 20th, the newly activated 8th Company joined the 2nd Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, receiving 15 Panzer IV tanks. On June 28th, 9th Company moved to a new staging area in preparation for Operation Citadel. In the early hours of July 5, 1943, SS Panzer Regiment 3 began its advance from the Rakovo sector at the start of Operation Citadel. Within 1.5 kilometers, the regiment lost a Panzer III to Soviet fire. 9th Company was attached to the 1st Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, supporting the 1st Battalion, SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment 5, mechanized. The first major obstacle was a tank ditch, which was breached by divisional engineers, allowing Tiger tanks to provide covering fire. The Soviets responded with intense artillery and anti-tank fire. By July 6th, only 6 Tiger tanks remained operational, as 5 had sustained mine damage. Several Stuggy assault guns were also lost. On July 7th, 9th Company engaged Soviet forces near Nepchayevka, suffering further casualties. By July 12th, the company participated in an assault on Andreevka, crossing the Psel River on a temporary bridge. That day, SS Untersturmführer Kohler, the company commander, was killed in action. On July 13th, the company had 4 Tiger tanks undergoing repairs while continuing operations in the Kursk salient. On July 13th, 1943, SS Untersturmführer Schuffler joined the 9th Company after being transferred from the Tiger Battalion of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. Before this, he had served in SS Kradschützen Battalion 2 between February 1942 and January 1943. At the beginning of July 1943, the SS Heavy Panzer Battalion, commanded by SS Sturmbannführer Lachmann, was transported to the Eastern Front, unloaded in Lubotin, and initially deployed in an infantry role. On July 13th, the 9th Company started the day with 4 operational Tiger tanks, seeing limited action near Hill 226 and along the Kartashevka Road. However, by the end of the day, every remaining Tiger tank had been rendered inoperable, with all 14 tanks sent to the workshop platoon for repairs. On July 15th, the Totenkopf division withdrew from the Sel River bridgehead, taking up defensive positions along the southern bank of the river. The following day, Adolf Hitler officially suspended Operation Citadel, despite Field Marshal Erich von Manstein arguing that the offensive could still be salvaged. Instead, Operation Roland was devised, involving elements of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. On July 17th, orders were issued for the Leibstandarte SS Division and Das Reich Division to regroup near Belgorod. That same day, a transport plane carrying spare parts from Magdeburg for the 9th Company landed at Volchansk Kharkov. The parts were collected from Panzer Repair Battalion 545. On July 18th, the 9th Company and 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 supported the 167th Infantry Division near Ivanovsky. The next day, the Tiger Company relocated near Lutsk, and on July 20th, orders were issued for the 2nd SS Panzer Corps to relocate 400 kilometers south. The tracked vehicles of the regiment were loaded onto rail transports in Belgorod and Kharkov. On July 22nd, the 9th Company travelled to Kharkov, preparing for redeployment. The company departed on July 24th, unloading in the Stalino-Rikovo area on July 26th. On July 29th, the 9th Company received 8 additional Tiger tanks from SS Panzer, Regiment 1 in Artemovsk, which was en route to Italy. Also handed over from SS Panzer Regiment 1 were 30 Panzer IV tanks, 17 to 5th Company, 13 to 1st Battalion, 4 Panzer III tanks. The 9th Company was able to re-establish the 4th Platoon, with SS Hauptscharführer Berger appointed as its commander. The other platoons were organised as follows: 1st Platoon SS Untersturmführer Rathsack 2nd Platoon, SS Untersturmführer Quaid 3rd Platoon, SS Obersturmbannführer Schuffler. Each platoon was equipped with 5 Tiger tanks, while the company headquarters unit had 2 Tigers. The support units maintained an inventory of 55 wheeled and half-tracked vehicles. Wagner described the company's movements and engagements. The company had moved from Budi and assembled in a wooded area near Belgorod. On July 5th, the Luftwaffe flew overhead. Around midday, the company's support units fell in behind the 1st Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3. A fuel truck caught fire and exploded due to Soviet anti-tank fire. 2 of our Tiger tanks got bogged down, while others sustained mine damage to their running gear. Our commander's Tiger tank was immobilized in a minefield. An SS Hauptsturmführer Biermeier, Probst, and the driver attempted field repairs. Meanwhile, Quaid and Rathsack led the rest of the company into a nearby forest. The next day, the Soviet Air Force launched air raids on our positions. SS Sturmbannführer Kunzmann was killed, and SS Sturmbannführer Bochmann took over as regiment commander. SS Hauptsturmführer Biermeier was promoted to command 2nd Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, and SS Obersturmbannführer Schröder took command of the Tiger Company. However, he lasted only half a day before being killed in action. SS Untersturmführer Kohler was then given command, but was killed shortly afterward. Finally, SS Hauptsturmführer Egon Richter, a Knight's Cross recipient, assumed command. That day, we also lost Lampert, while Hempfinger was wounded. Fritz Hitz, serving as a loader in a Tiger tank, recalled the events. I was relieved to be assigned to a Tiger tank since I had prior experience. We received the usual attack command and advanced. We spotted a T-34 tank near a windmill and quickly knocked it out. Moments later, we engaged and destroyed a second T-34. We moved into a cornfield when suddenly we heard Russian infantry shouting they had been hiding in the tall crops and launched a surprise attack against our tank. SS Obersturmbannführer Schroeder immediately ordered, "Ludwig, open fire with the machine gun." I hesitated before informing him. "Sir, we don't have a turret MG. This is a command variant of the Tiger with an additional Fu-8 radio system instead." Schroeder then demanded, "Hand me the machine pistol." I hesitated again, knowing he intended to fire out of the hatch. I thought to myself, this is madness, but he insisted. I handed him the MP-40 submachine gun, and he climbed out of the turret hatch, firing at the oncoming Soviet infantry. Moments later, he fell back into the turret, his head destroyed by an anti-tank rifle round. Ludwig quickly ordered the driver to reverse, and we pulled back from the cornfield. Later, when it was safe, we removed Schroeder's body and laid him under a tree. He was a true daredevil. During World War I, he had served as a pilot. In my diary, I wrote, "A great loss." That same day, SS Unterscharführer Gockel was also killed in action. I remember Ludwig Lachner and Müller, but some other names of the crew escape me. On July 28, 1943, the Totenkopf division regrouped in the Krasnaya region. The following day, SS Panzer Regiment 3 established its command post in Ramovsky, with its starting position set between Snezhnoye and Krasnaya. On July 30th, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3, supported by SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment Totenkopf and the 9th Company, launched an attack on Hill 213.9. However, the advance was immediately hindered by Soviet minefields, inflicting damage on multiple tanks. SS Hauptsturmführer Richter's account, Mius Front, July 30th. We advanced into no man's land, heading toward the Russian defensive lines. Their infantry was deeply entrenched, forming a complex system of defensive positions, extending up to regimental level. The Soviets withdrew only at the last moment. We pressed on, pushing toward Hill 213.9 as mortar and machine gun fire rained down on us. Everything in our path was either crushed or overrun. During this engagement, SS Hauptsturmführer Richter's Tiger tank struck a mine. As he dismounted to inspect the damage, a Soviet mortar round exploded nearby, wounding him in the stomach. He was evacuated and treated at multiple hospitals before being reassigned to training duties. He later took command of the 2nd Battalion, SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment 95 of the 38th SS Grenadier Division Nibelungen in March 1945. Following Richter's evacuation, SS Obersturmbannführer Schuffler assumed command of the 9th Company. The attack pressed on as minefields were gradually cleared, but the Soviets responded with heavy artillery and anti-tank fire. The Tiger tanks provided covering fire for the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3, but radio operator Gunther Groner was killed during the battle. Rolf Stettner, a soldier from the 5th Company, 2nd Battalion, SS Panzer Regiment 3, recalled, "The Soviets developed new metal-cased mines specifically to combat our Tiger tanks. Before this, they had used wood-encased mines, typically 20 to 30 centimeters in diameter." On August 1st, our Panzer Regiment was forced to shift formation to the right due to intense Soviet anti-tank fire. The Tiger tanks advanced ahead of us, but as I looked beside me, one had come to a sudden halt. Throughout the day, SS Panzer Regiment 3 engaged in bitter fighting near Hill 213.9. By nightfall, the 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 and the 9th Company had reached the northwestern slope of the hill. However, 8 Tigers were sent for repairs, suffering damage to their running gear, tracks, and hulls. During these engagements, SS Sturmen Matai was killed near Stepanovka. On July 31st, the assault on Hill 213.9 resumed. Every meter of ground was heavily contested. The Luftwaffe provided close air support with Stuka dive bombers, but the Soviets continued resisting fiercely. During the battle, the Tiger tanks commanded by SS Oberscharführer Lampert and SS Unterscharführer Bieber were destroyed by anti-tank fire. SS Oberscharführer Lampert was killed, though his crew managed to escape. Also killed in action that day were Kochesser and Schweitzer. The final assault on Hill 213.9, August 1st to 2nd, 1943. The Totenkopf division renewed its assault on August 1st, encountering more minefields, intense anti-tank gunfire, and heavy artillery barrages. The 1st Battalion of SS Panzer Regiment 3 suffered flanking fire from Soviet forces. Several tank crews who bailed out were forced to fight on foot. During the battle, the Tiger tank commanded by Karl Sandler was damaged, taking a direct hit to its running gear. Meanwhile, 9th Company suffered another fatality when loader Gunther Schreier was killed. By late afternoon, the Totenkopf division reported to the 2nd SS Panzer Corps that Hill 213.9 had been secured, but at great cost. On August 2nd, the 9th Company and other divisional elements launched another attack across Hill 191.3. During this battle, SS Untersturmführer Schuffler was badly wounded and later died. SS Untersturmführer Quard then assumed command of the 9th Company. Later that day, Kochesser, Lampert and Schweitzer were buried. In mid-May 1943, I was serving with Kradschützen Regiment Thule before being transferred to the Tiger Company, which was stationed in Buddy at the time. Initially, I was assigned as a radio operator, but for most of June, I worked as a company clerk. Between July 6th and 21st, I was granted home leave. When I returned on July 27th, the company was already deployed at the Mius front. We received orders to assault Hill 213.9 near Stepanovka, where radio operator Schweitzer, serving in Probst's Tiger, was killed in action. On August 2nd, the company was loaded onto transport trains in Gorlovka, Horlivka, and later unloaded in Merefa. Heavy fighting near Kharkov, August 12th to 14th, 1943. On August 12th, we launched an attack west of Kharkov. I was positioned as a radio operator inside SS Untersturmführer Quade's command Tiger, with Kosliki, Kolki, as our primary objective. The attack failed. We suffered 2 total tank losses, and 3 other Tigers were severely damaged. Our Tiger tank remained operational, but SS Untersturmführer Fein's crew was killed when their Tiger was completely burned out. During the same battle, SS Oberscharführer Lampert was killed, and both SS Untersturmführer Rathsack and SS Rottenführer Schlab were seriously wounded. The following day, August 13th, we advanced further alongside Panzerabteilung Großdeutschland, attacking Kachalovka. Heavy losses were reported on both sides. The Russians lost several tanks, and so did we. On August 14th, we engaged in combat across multiple villages, including Alexeyevka, Marufa, Medjanik and Ridlo, covering approximately 40 kilometers. Advancing toward Kolontayev, August 16th to 30th, 1943. By August 16th, 2 more Tiger tanks had returned to active service following repairs. The company was assigned to secure the Mertschik-Merla sector. On August 20th, our unit advanced toward Kolontayev, where SS Sturmen Volga was killed in action. Our forces successfully linked up with the Großdeutschland division north of Alexeyevka. The next morning, strong Soviet armoured forces attempted a breakout. However, they were met with fierce defensive fire from our tank crews. Gunner Lawrence managed to destroy 2 Russian tanks. By August 30th, an attack was launched with 2 Tiger tanks, advancing along the heights south of Kolontayev. During the assault, SS Unterscharführer Privatsky's Tiger was hit by an artillery shell, killing the driver, Bachmann. The tank was deemed a total loss. Despite the setbacks with infantry support, our unit secured the heights. Later that night, we detected heavy enemy movement, including tanks repositioning. SS Sturmen Winter and 6 other men worked through the night to repair our main gun, which had been rendered inoperable. Soviet counterattack at 0400 hours. At 0400, the Soviets launched a counterattack, heavily targeting our positions with artillery and anti-tank fire. SS Untersturmführer Quade's Tiger took a direct hit from an anti-tank rifle round in the commander's cupola. The impact instantly killed SS Sturmen Winter and wounded the driver, Hilgart. Despite his injuries, Hilgart managed to maneuver the Tiger into cover, avoiding further incoming anti-tank fire. Erich Lehmkuhl's account, mid-August, 1943. After the Mius front campaign, our company was loaded onto trains in Yasnovodia and transported north. Near Walki, we unloaded and began immediate repairs on our Tigers. The Werkstatt platoon worked around the clock, using electrowelding equipment to repair battle damage. Afterward, the Tigers received a fresh coat of paint. Those tanks requiring minimal repairs were placed under the command of Regimental Commander Standartenführer Bochmann. At this point, the company was under SS Untersturmführer Quade's leadership. He was a capable commander, despite the fact that he had only one eye. First platoon was led by SS Untersturmführer Rathsack, August 11th, preparations for combat. On August 11th, we moved to a forward village preparing for deployment. Quade planned to attack along an east-west axis to counter Russian territorial gains. The waiting was unbearable. By 1600 hours, we finally received orders to advance toward a series of heights. As we descended, the Ukrainian landscape unfolded before us. At a distance of 2.5 kilometers, we spotted a large Soviet column in motion, a mix of vehicles, tanks, artillery, and horse-drawn wagons, escorted by infantry units. Realizing that the Russians were preparing defensive positions, we observed Soviet soldiers spreading out to secure their flanks. Soon, heavy fire rained down on us, but suddenly, Luftwaffe He-111 bombers arrived overhead. The bombers carpet-bombed the Russian column, decimating their ranks. As the infantry followed up with a ground assault, we were ordered to hold our position. However, while withdrawing, we fired a few high-explosive rounds at dispersing enemy units. The heat was unbearable, reaching 30 degrees Celsius. Our Tiger developed gear problems, but repairs were quickly carried out by Karl Frank, our indispensable mechanic. The ambush at the village. The next day, August 12th, after a peaceful night, we were ordered to advance westward. We formed up in a village previously cleared by SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment Eicher. The Grenadiers had conducted house-to-house searches, ensuring that the area was secured. As we moved along the road into another village, everything seemed eerily quiet. Only chickens wandered through the streets. There were no signs of civilians. Something felt wrong. As we entered, figures in brown uniforms darted into a nearby field. We fired machine gun bursts, but no counterattack followed. Were the Soviets playing a game? Quaid decided to seize the heights beyond the village, deploying us in a wedge formation. Everything had been too easy so far. Approximately 1 kilometer from the heights, Quaid ordered a halt. He sent SS Untersturmführer Rathsack ahead to scout. Moments later, a blinding flash erupted. An explosion rocked our position. Our driver was temporarily blinded, while our radio sets were knocked out. Franz immediately reversed the Tiger, moving carefully to avoid throwing a track. We found cover 200 meters back, escaping further anti-tank fire. The tragic outcome. As we re-established communications, an SS Oberscharführer reported grim news over the radio. 1 dead, headshot. SS Untersturmführer Rathsack and his gunner are wounded. From our position, we saw our Tiger tanks on the right, but no sign of 1st Platoon. Then, in the distance, we saw it, a burning Tiger tank. It was SS Unterscharführer Fein's Tiger 913, engulfed in flames. Quaid and Hilgart rushed to the scene as our infantry provided covering fire. The battle had taken a heavy toll, another day of death and destruction on the Eastern Front. Aftermath of the battle, the fate of Fein's Tiger. After advancing only 500 meters, we still saw no sign of the Russians. Those moving on foot approached Fein's burning Tiger tank from the side, aware that the 8.8 centimeter ammunition could still ignite. Franz Hofer succumbed to his wounds, while inside the wreckage we found Fein's lifeless body. His Tiger had been struck on the front by a 9.2 centimeter anti-tank shell, a round capable of penetrating even the strongest armor. As we stood there, Hofer lay in front of us, his life taken by the battle. He was a good-hearted soldier, but we had no time to grieve. The Russians were closing in, advancing with hand grenades in hand. We remounted our Tiger, preparing for another engagement. The day's toll was devastating. 7 dead, 3 wounded, and 1 Tiger tank completely destroyed. Another 4 Tigers sustained severe damage, requiring extensive repairs. Our company commander's Tiger was still operational, but our own tank had taken 2 hits. One of the rounds struck just above the driver's vision block, a few centimeters lower, and it could have been fatal. Soviet counterattack and the power of Nebelwerfers. Not long after, the Russians opened fire again, laying down suppressive artillery that caused further casualties among our infantry. Their infantry forces launched an assault, but Quaid's Tiger responded with accurate fire, tearing through their ranks. The Russian attack stalled, and our infantry launched a counter-offensive. Suddenly, the howling of rockets filled the air, followed by massive explosions on the heights ahead. Our Nebelwerfer batteries had opened fire. As our infantry struggled up the heights, we could contribute only limited support. We had just 1 operational Tiger, which could only provide covering fire. Later in the evening, we moved forward, advancing toward the anti-tank gun positions that had caused such devastation earlier. What we found was shocking. 8 American anti-tank guns, capable of the same firepower as our 8.8 centimeter cannons. The Nebelwerfer fire had completely demoralized the Russian crews, forcing them to abandon their positions. A quiet night and an unexpected encounter. That night, everything fell eerily silent. In the darkness, we could hear the Russians talking loudly while we spoke in softer tones. Suddenly, out of the darkness, a lone rider approached. His shoulder epaulettes made it clear. He was a Russian officer. At that moment, Franz, our driver, dropped his sandwich, muttering "Rookie wash" while gesturing with his hand. The Russian officer realized his mistake. He was surrounded by German troops. Turning his horse sharply, he tried to escape, but our infantry opened fire. His horse collapsed, yet somehow the officer managed to get up and disappear into the night. We ran over to the fallen horse, recovering the officer's saddle and equipment, which was made from fine leather. We later handed all leather items to the company shoemaker, who crafted new boots and sports shoes for our men. A night of artillery fire and the attack at dawn. At 0300 hours, we were awakened by loud noises of moving tanks, seemingly all around us. However, it quickly became clear that this was not the enemy. It was a Tiger battalion from the German army, maneuvering through our positions. After 10 minutes, an enormous artillery barrage erupted, followed by rocket fire, shaking the ground beneath us. We moved out, forming a wedge formation, much like a training exercise, and advanced toward another village. As we approached, we saw flames rising from burning houses, their thatched roofs ablaze. However, it became clear that the Russians had set up an anti-tank defense line. A Tiger on our right fired first, engaging targets at 1,000 meters. We quickly followed suit, unleashing our own cannon fire. This exchange lasted 15 minutes before we pushed into the village's main road. Moving off to the right with 4 Tigers, we advanced with infantry support, securing our positions for the night. The Soviet forces had suffered heavily, overwhelmed by 36 Tiger tanks from the 3rd Panzer Regiment Grossdeutschland. That evening, our army counterparts withdrew, leaving us to continue the offensive alone, supported only by our own grenadier units.